Welcome, welcome. This is the Common Constitutionalist coming at you with the Common Constitutionalist Weekly Podcast. And I'd like to share a couple of things today. One was a rather odd incident I went through, and the balance of the time I'm going to spend with you today is going to be on the COP agreement, the global warming agreement, and a rather less publicized, we'll just call it the deniers convention. That's for want of a better term. Today on the Common Constitutionalist.
You're listening to the Common Constitutionalist, broadcasting from an undisclosed location, free from the prying eyes of establishment black companies.
So as I said in the intro, I had a kind of an odd day today, I'll say. My kids and I live we live in an apartment, and it's on the north end. It's on the outskirts of a city in New England. I'll just leave it at that. Nice area, nice place. We like it. Been here for a while. But just like in any city, you'll have we'll just say foreigners moving in, and that's okay. I got no problem with that, to an extent, I guess. But for those unfamiliar with apartment dwelling, normally in the basement of the building or the attic of the building, they'll have excess storage facilities available to each apartment dweller. Ours just happens to be in the attic. And this morning, late morning, I was heading up to the attic to retrieve a few Christmas items that I had neglected to get the other day. So I'm walking up the stairs, and I see that the attic door, which is locked, bolted, whatever, and you need a key to access it, so it's a secure facility. Kinda, I guess. And I'm walking up the stairs, turn the corner, prepared to get my key out, and the door is open. And there are a couple of, we'll just call them Middle Eastern gentlemen, slight build Middle Eastern gentlemen, carrying suitcases out of the storage facility. They both spoke English. They asked me if I needed to get by. They broke in English, but English nonetheless. And I said yes, and that was fine, and thanked him for that, and walked into my locked up stall, or however you want to classify it. Got my stuff and turned around to leave, and on the floor of the storage of the attic, there's a large hallway running down, and the storage facilities are on both sides of this large hallway. And in the hallway there was one particular Middle Eastern looking gentleman, bent down, and he had one of several large suitcases open. And I'm a relatively observant individual, and I observed that there was a silver pot inside of a suitcase. I thought that a bit odd, but didn't think much about it until I got back downstairs, realized that I had forgotten one more item, went back up there. The place was locked up and whatnot, but the suitcases were not locked up. They were still out in the attic for anyone to see, and frankly, for anyone to take if they so desired. So, knowing what I know about what's been going on in the world, in our country, and possibly in every neighborhood in our country, since these were not locked up, since these were not secured in any way, I went ahead and opened them up to see what I could see. I opened up the first suitcase, and in the first suitcase I saw a singlet. It almost looked like a military aircrew singlet. It was in kind of like a army fatigue green singlet, but it wasn't military issue. It was just a singlet, and it wasn't an aircrew singlet. It was a heavy insulated type of thing. Okay, and there was a little knife in the suitcase. It was still packaged. Okay, fine. Close that up, open up the other one, and son of a gun if what I didn't find was a pressure cooker. Holy crap on a cracker. So I didn't, there was no panic and there was no nothing or whatnot. I kind of know what I'm doing here. So anyway, I preached forever, well, for a long time now, to anyone I know, my readers, my listeners, whatever. It's the same thing everyone else in the government and everybody else is saying. See something, say something, hear something, say something. And not wanting to be a hypocrite, I went ahead and dropped one of my sons off at his girlfriend's house, and on the way back, I decided to go into the local police department office, and report the incident, as it were. Well, no one was available to take my incident report necessarily, so I shuffled on home and told them that, they're welcome to come by and speak to me in private and whatever. So a couple of police officers showed up about an hour or so later. I welcomed them in, told them a little bit of my background, told them what I know, and so on, so I wasn't some sort of whack job. And then explained to them exactly what I saw, not what I heard, because I didn't really hear much of anything, but certainly what I saw. And they weren't alarmed necessarily, and I told them, look, this is most likely, I'm sure it's nothing. It probably is nothing. The gentlemen weren't suspicious looking. They didn't act suspiciously toward me. Nothing. There was just a bit odd about who keeps a pressure cooker in a suitcase? Nobody I know. So I asked the police officers that, and they just kind of shrugged their shoulders like, yeah, I don't know. But anyway, so they went up and checked it out, and they came back and told me, you're right, it's nothing and whatever. But they thanked me for my due diligence, so to speak, and went on their merry way. And I just thought I'd bring this up because with the incident in San Bernardino, that probably could have been prevented if somebody had spoken up. This is important for everybody. See something, say something, hear something, say something. No matter how minor the incident seems to be, no matter how innocent the incident seems to be. This, I knew instinctively that it was going to end up being nothing. But I had to say something, if for nothing else, to look at myself in the mirror and say, you preach all this crap, and then when it comes to you, you're a freaking hypocrite. So that's all I got to say about that. But it wasn't your typical day. How's that? In the life of the common constitutionalist. So, on that note, how about we liven things up or lessen the tension a little bit with a little Christmas intermission.
You're listening to the Common Constitutionalist. Let the truth be known.
So the Grand COP21 agreement in Paris has been published finally. COP meaning Conference of the Parties. And there's a PDF of it, and it's rather cumbersome. It's about 31 pages long, and I'm talking pages long. It's dry, it's droll, and it's written like we'll just say like a congressional bill would be written. Convoluted, it sends you hither and yon. No one but except for a doctorate degree in law could understand this thing. It sends you, in accordance with this article and that article and the last agreement and the Kyoto Agreement and this mechanism and that. And it's written in such a way that nobody can understand what it says or what they're signing on to, which sounds about like what Congress does. And of course it's written in such a way as no one can understand it purposefully, so they just sign it like a bunch of idiots. And then obviously for the United States it's not binding. It can't be binding unless the Congress votes on it. So I don't know where Obama stands on that. But at any rate, it's out, and it's fabulous. So within the first party of the agreement, it says that the agreement it's recognizing that climate change represents an urgent and potentially irreversible threat to human society and the planet, and thus requires the widest possible cooperation by all countries and their participation in an effective and appropriate international response with a view to accelerating the reduction of global greenhouse gas emissions. Hey, brother. So at least they say that the climate isn't an irreversible threat. It's just potentially. If we don't, you have to act now. We got to do something to save Mother Earth, to save Gaia, the planet. We have to do something. Otherwise, there's an irreversible threat right around the corner if we don't do something. Now, I, being the geek I am, read the whole 31 pages, didn't read it, I glanced at some of the sections, and like I said, it is convoluted at best. Now, the agreement also says that they're acknowledging the need to promote universal access to sustainable energy in developing countries, in particular in Africa, through the enhanced deployment of renewable energy. So, why especially Africa, particularly in Africa? What is it with Africa? I don't understand it, other than they need our money, basically. Which is exactly what this whole thing is. It's a shell game. It's a UN money laundering scheme is exactly what it is, which you'll see in just a second here. But again, why Africa? It's always Africa that has to be sustained for some reason. I don't know why. It also says the agreed upon is recognizing the fundamental priority of safeguarding food security and ending hunger, and the particular vulnerabilities of food production systems to the adverse impact of climate change. So, food security. See, the problem with food security is that it ain't secure, and as long as these global nimrods, global warming idiots, are in charge of everything, like the EPA and these guys, food security will never be it will always, food insecurity will always exist, because we could feed the planet if you just took the shackles off, the regulatory shackles off of our farmers and our farm land. So they complain about food production, but the problem is that everything has to be organic. Well, unfortunately, when you plant organic, you got to clear about 5 times as much land to plant organic vegetables and crops as you do regular old crops that you can use pesticides and insecticides with and fertilizer. But, of course, they won't let you do that because it harms the climate. So it's a vicious cycle that they put us in. It's ridiculous. Now, interspersed throughout the entire document is this vague concept they keep bringing up, is the vague concept of contributions. It's used dozens and dozens of times, if not hundreds of times. Contribution this, contribution that, voluntary contribution, whatever. Well, here's the contribution. This is the crux of the whole thing, basically. They could just throw out the rest of the 31 pages or 30 and a half pages and just use this one paragraph, because this is what it's all about, folks. And I quote, "The agreement resolves to enhance the provision," and listen to the language, it's all flowery and nonsensical, it's such bullcrap. The agreement resolves to enhance the provision of urgent and adequate finance. Here we go. Finance, technology, and capacity building support by developed country parties in order to enhance the level of ambition of pre-2020 action by the parties, and in this regard, strongly urges developed country parties to scale up their level of financial support with a concrete map to achieve the goal of jointly providing in U.S. dollars $100 billion annually by 2020 for mitigation and adaptation while significantly increasing adaptation finance from current levels to further provide appropriate technology and capacity building support. End quote. Holy crap. Well, I don't know what else what the other gibberish meant other than they want us to jointly, I wonder who that is. It's the United States and a couple other countries that put in $5 or $10, and then the United States is on the hook for the rest of it. The $100 billion a year by 2020, which is what, almost a little 4 years away. That's it. Which, of course, they want to significantly increase after 2020. Gee, what a shocker. So again, this is just a big money-grabbing scheme. And it's all to penalize the United States because we are the big warmists here. We are the cause of all the troubles in the world, don't you know? And this has got me so riled up that I need to hear some more Christmas music. So bring it on.
You're listening to the Common Constitutionalist. Let the truth be known.
Whew. Okay, I feel better for about 5 seconds until I start again. But all is not lost, because a funny thing happened on the way to the COP agreement. At the same time, the global warming idiots had convened their convention. A group of real scientists, not politicians or bureaucrats and hacks. They were convening a group of real scientists in Essen, Germany, and many of the evil climate deniers attended. Dun, dun, dun. So I'm thinking about this, and I think actually the warming alarmists need a new term for us rather than climate denier. What the heck is a climate denier anyway? I don't believe in man-made global warming, but I'm certainly not denying that there's a climate. Of course there's a freaking climate. What else would there be? Yeah, if we didn't have a climate, we wouldn't be here for a long. I'll tell you that. Be living on Mars, baby. So, just as an aside, do we need to change the term from climate denier to actually truth teller? How's that? But speaking of truth telling, we've now entered our 22nd year of no global warming. September of 2015 marked the beginning. I think it was either September or November of this year. Marked the beginning of the 22nd year of no significant global warming. And by significant, I mean not the couple hundredths, hundredths of a degree difference one way or the other. That's not significant. That's not even warming, to be honest with you. So anyway, at this convention of real scientists, a German scientist is raising a serious question as to whether government data keepers have been tampering with scientific data to conjure up warming trends where none exist. Well, of course they are, duh. But he knows that too. It's just that's the opening statement. This guy is Dr. Friedrich Karl, I think it's Ewert. He's a professor emeritus of geophysics at the University of Paderborn in Paderborn, Germany. And he says the problem with these warmists is that we rely entirely on simulation models. Gee, where have we heard this before? Reality looks very different from simulations. They also rely wholly on simulated models and ground-based measurements, which aren't as accurate as satellite or a combination of the two. Which, of course, they're going to use the ground-based measurements. And anybody who knows anything about ground-based measurements is they are not accurate, first off. And secondly, there's huge portions of the globe that aren't even covered by ground-based temperature readings, not to mention the oceans, It's a ridiculous shell game. So CFACT, the anti-global warming guys, very trustworthy, by the way. If you're not reading CFACT, you should start. But I digress. Anyway, they report that Ewert conducted exhaustive research comparing climate computer models to real-world temperatures. His findings confirm what others have concluded, that the models run far hotter than measured observations. He points out that the UN IPCC likes to carefully select the dates and data it presents, but that if we look at the temperature changes over a larger period, any trend disappears. So there's no trending upward at all. It's flatlined. Some places are even cooling, and that's what we've been saying for years, and now we're in our 22nd year of no warming. It's quite the hiatus, I'd say. As an example of the numbers finagling, Dr. Ewert says, in 2012, we realized that the data offered by NASA was not the same as that offered in 2010, just 2 years earlier. The data had been altered. Son of a gun. And they're still getting away with this crap-ola. He says that if in 2010 someone had, for instance, looked up the data for Palma de Mallorca, which is, I guess, Palma de Mallorca is an island off of the east coast of Spain, but at any rate, they would have seen cooling of 0.0076 degrees. I don't even know how that's measurable, but at any rate, they would have seen cooling in 2010, but in 2012 it suddenly showed a warming increase of 0.0074 degrees. And he says that this is not a one-off. This is not a peculiar occurrence. They do this kind of crap all the time. The report goes on to say that the warming alarmists routinely claim that some period of time is the hottest ever, in the expectation that the casual observer will never realize that the records are set by meaningless hundreds of a degree. And of course, they know this. All they do is they send it out to these idiot mass media people, NBC, CBS, ABC, CNN, MSNBC, whoever, even Fox, and they say 2015's warmest ever, 2009 warmest ever, 2014 warmest ever. Every year it's the warmest ever. And they know that the majority of people on the planet, much less in this country, will never, ever check to make sure to see that it's bogus, which it is. The doc says that until these measurements used to be sacrosanct. That's what you used, was the measurements. And he asks, can you call it fraud or falsification? He says, I'm not a lawyer, but I can say that it has been changed retroactively. NASA data has been adjusted to show 85% of temperature trends to be warmer and only 15% cooler. So they're making this data up. They're putting it in their silly little computers, and that's what they're doing. It's a travesty is what it is, and they're getting away with it. Like Rush Limbaugh said, this is the biggest scam in the history of mankind. Oh, sorry. Was that a microaggression? Humankind. Personkind. The fact is that these warming scientists, they don't understand the climate. It's too complicated to understand. And what they don't understand the impacts of the sun, so they discount it, and they don't understand natural weather patterns. And so they just constantly the weather is constantly changing. The weather patterns are constantly changing. There's sunspots, there's not sunspots, there's all sorts of stuff that will impact the climate a lot more than mankind could ever even hope to impact. And so they discount, they throw that stuff out, and they just put their bogus numbers in a climate model. It spits out what they want it to spit out, and there you go, climate change. And here you go, step to the cash register. It's $100 billion for the year. Just absolutely insane. And anybody who falls for this crap, boy, I tell you, I feel sorry for you. If you want to pony up for this nonsense, you feel free to write a check to the UN IPCC if you want. Give them all the money you want, but stay out of our wallets and stay out of our way. Whew. So this has been the Common Constitutionalist, and y'all have a great balance of the weekend. I hope to. I hope I don't run into any more pressure cookers. And that's all I got. See you guys next week.